All right. So just a recap, try and make this quick. It's just we work under the auspices of the National Weatherization Assistance Program, which takes the whole house approach. They list typical weatherization measures that are to be done by all the programs. Ours is the Illinois Home Weatherization Assistance Program that focuses on low-income residents to make their lives healthier, more comfortable, and to reduce energy costs. So it's a multi-phase process, so to speak. Then there's the administration of it, and we work with the manager of the program for the state of Illinois. We have a lot of contact with him, and he has been super supportive of everything that we have done, and he's been helpful in this transition period. Let's see. We have the local agencies throughout the state, and an agency usually performs weatherization services for more than one county. Some are crew-based, some hire contractors. We have 30 right now, 30 agencies, but the weatherization manager, and I might have mentioned this last time, wants to make those into 13 regions and see if that would be more efficient. Because we have a lot of turnover, there's a lot of politics and other things that are going on at the agencies, and it seems like very few of them are really, really stable. So I think that's one reason he wants to go with the 13 regions instead of the 30 agencies, which has been reduced. I think we used to have 34 or 35 when I first came on 10 years ago. And there's always ones in turmoil, usually because they don't have enough staff, or they don't have enough money, or they have people at the top that don't understand weatherization or the programs they run. So it's, maybe we can get a better handle on it if there's fewer agencies, so to speak, to deal with. And then the funding is rather complicated. An agency's funding is based on what's called the Index of Need formula, and that involves number of people at or below the poverty level. I'm sorry. And then the average heating degree days and average area fuel costs. So it's rather complicated. I've never seen the formula, so please don't ask me to illustrate. Let's see. Each agency is responsible on an annual basis for production. And this was a typical production, their actual versus what was planned. In like April, May, and June, that's a big time for the agencies to focus on getting those production numbers. If they're behind, they really need to kick some butt and get some production done. Now, again, because of turmoil, turnover, and all that stuff, they are terribly behind this year. So, it's kind of frustrating for Mick, who's the state weatherization manager, because he can only do so much. He can't control what the agencies do. So if they're not run properly and people leave, it can only do so much. It kind of is, job insurance for us, I guess you could say, because we keep training people and training new people all the time. We just as soon train people that have been in the network for a while, train them on new things. So maybe at some point we'll get there. Let's see. So we have an annual contract to present the training, and it's 10 weeks long. And then the program starts with weatherization basics, which gives new hires kind of an introduction to what our training is based on and what they'll see and what they'll more of what they should expect as an energy auditor. And then the basic principles taught: heat transfer, pressure and thermal boundaries, air leakage, pressure differences, and soft skills. And of course, that's not everything, but that is some of the most important things. And of course, those are supported, many of those things are supported by diagnostic tests. You know, what kind of tests should we do? How should we do them? How should we make sure we get the proper results? And then, you know, how do we read those results, and what does that mean? Especially, what does it mean in terms of the house as a system? And then some of the topics are the common problems, of course, the diagnostic tests, and we tell our students about available resources, and we cover mechanical and architectural systems that are important, how they are important to weatherization, the impact of doing work in mechanical and the architectural systems, and then health and safety for not just the clients, but also for themselves. So I sent this document out a while back, and it is the assessor document. It's very important. It's something that they have in their hand currently, but we're switching over to something on an iPad or some kind of, you know, tablet that they can enter this information on offline, and then when they get back to the office, they can access it there and use it for input into the WeatherWorks system. We're trying to, I mean, this document is grown and grown with all the things that they need to remember and things they need to do. And currently it's 34 pages long, which is a lot to, you know, look through and worry about filling out and everything. But it provides a lot of necessary information for people and guides for the, you know, for the assessor, and some information to pass along to the clients. So then also, I believe we covered this before, when they get there, they do a visual assessment. They walk around the property initially, make some notes, take some pictures. And the exterior walk around could be things that they note, like no gutters, or something that might be okay, like the windows are double paned. That helps with energy efficiency. Then it was noted that some interior you know, visual inspection can reveal obvious things, like this mold problem that these people had. And then I think we got to the diagnostic testing, which is something that the assessors do. Once they're in the house, they start tackling.
Lori, I don't think we got this far last time.
I'm
I
sorry.
don't think we got this far last
So
time.
this is where I want to pick up.
Okay.
I'm sorry if I misspoke. This is where it gets into the more of the nitty gritty, where the assessors start doing their diagnostic testing. And this is the kind of tests that we teach them about: the CAS, spillage, carbon monoxide, and combustion flue gas testing. And the CAS is one of the most important tests that they'll do. And usually, correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, but I think the spillage test usually goes with the CAS testing. Is that correct?
Correct. We should say what CAS stands for.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Combustion appliance zone.
Appliance. Okay, I'm sorry. Combustion appliance zone depressurization. Yes. And that that depends on the result of that is the difference in pressures, correct, Paul? That's the
Right. Yeah. Basically, the idea here is make it as difficult as possible for a combustion appliance to draft properly and see if it still can. And it's about making sure that we're not bringing combustion flue gases back into the house at dangerous levels.
Which connects with the spillage test,
Mhm.
correct?
Yep, yep.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So the leakage of exhaust products is something that I typically think of as safety, but you're doing it along with weatherization or energy efficiency. So how much safety or how much of safety measures are included with what I typically think of as an energy efficiency assessment?
Marie, do you want me to do that?
Please.
Okay, so there are really two primary things. Almost all of the health and safety stuff that is done in terms of actual measures is related to combustion safety. So it's this kind of diagnostic to see whether we're bringing bad stuff back into the house. If we are, what do we need to do to fix it? And then there's also stuff about making sure they have CO alarms, smoke alarms, fire extinguishers. They also are supposed to check the carbon monoxide coming off of cooking appliances. They're not drafting to outside, but it's still a health and safety issue. Most other health and safety things are such that if there's a big problem, then you defer the house instead of proceeding. It's just beyond the scope of weatherization. One of the things here is as you're air tightening a home, it can make the draft of these appliances more difficult. So you want to see whether you have a problem in the first place, but then do you create a problem by doing energy efficiency?
And that's why they need to understand the house as a system. They have to understand that they could create some problems by doing some measures.
Got it. So even, let me just be clear that you're not going in to fix the whole house, but you're looking at those things that weatherization could make worse so that you don't get in trouble for causing harm. Is that right?
Well, I'm still hoping that they can do some weatherization measures, but there might be limited on which measures they can do so that they don't cause problems. But my understanding is that they can do some measures, but if it's a huge problem, I would think they'd have to defer it. I'm not sure that that would fall under weatherization plus. I guess it depends on what the problem is.
So the core weatherization, Tammy, you are correct. It is a do no harm. The stuff that Lori is talking about being able to do more of, Illinois has additional resources that allow us to consider doing additional health-related measures, but that's not standard in the weatherization program, even though we would like it to become more standard.
And then just one more thing for the people who don't know what deferred is, which is partly me. It means you can't do the weatherization right then and you might have to wait, or it means they're not going to get those measures.
Correct. Yeah, they might tell the client to find somebody to correct whatever's wrong, depending on what the situation is. If it's something that can be fixed, and then they would come back. But again, it depends on what kind of thing is wrong.
Yeah, they don't do weatherization at all at that time. And the thing that it's not that they do partial weatherization, but skip
Right.
part of it. They don't do any weatherization. They tell the folks, if you get it fixed, let us know. These are low income people. It can be really hard to get things fixed.
Okay, so that's a shame that they might miss out on weatherization if they have one problem that needs to be fixed by a contractor, but they can't afford to hire the contractor. Okay, and then for something like the carbon monoxide testing, the assessors have a toolkit. They have lots of testing devices and instruments that they take out with them. And you can see that the guy in the picture here is holding an instrument to help him analyze what's going on here. And of course, he has to know where to put the probe and how to set this instrument up and how to read the readings, what does that mean? So that's kind of thing that is taught here hands-on in the training center.
Hey, Lori, I'm seeing another little window in front of the presentation. Yeah, thanks.
Sorry, I moved something over a document to help me talk about this a little bit. Sorry. Okay, get rid of that. Let's see. So then our most important, or I would consider our most important tool, is the blower door that they have to set up to help with all these diagnostic tests. And it's a blower door with a manometer. That's what the guy's holding, is manometer that we have to have those calibrated periodically, correct, Paul? Okay. And so that they make sure that they're accurate. And he's setting up the fan and he's running it in conjunction with using the manometer. The manometer is telling him the readings. And so the blower door kit consists of the fan and controls, the shroud and the frame, which is the red and black here, and the pressure gauges and manometer. And his little hoses. He has hoses running off here. One runs to the outside, which helps him determine the pressure that he's receiving here. Okay. And then using the blower door, it gives you, it depressurizes the house, drawing in air through all the holes of the house, creating a pressure difference. And I know, Tammy, you were interested in pressure differences as far as the device you guys are looking at developing, if I remember correctly. And so this is, pressure differences are a big part of our curriculum, what that means, what needs to be done, and that kind of thing. A pressure pan is also used as one of our diagnostic tools. And it's a gasketed pan. That's what this guy's holding up here. And with a pressure tap and used in connection with the blower door. And it quantifies duct leakage to the outdoors. So he's looking at his gauge here. And that's another thing we teach is set up and using it and interpreting the results, what that means, what kind of measures can we take to address problems we find.
I was telling you yesterday about the DG2 and DG3. That's a DG3 from the Wayback Machine.
Wow.
It's like older than you.
Yeah, these pictures are probably really dated. I don't know. They've been around for a while. I know that. They're used in presentation after presentation here at the training center. So I don't know, maybe from the 70s. I don't know, maybe 80s. I don't know. Anyway, okay. So health and safety is part of it. We eliminate hazards. And of course, back to not doing any harm, the weatherization work must be beneficial. So I don't know who installed this insulation. In this picture, I grabbed that off the internet, but you can see it's been burnt, and that's because it's been put over a canned light without the can light having like a box built over it, kind of an insulated box to keep the heat from reaching the insulation and starting a fire hazard. So that's one thing we teach here, and you can see whoever installed this, whether it was the homeowner or some company who didn't know what they were doing, they just threw the insulation over the can light and it got singed. Okay. Okay, so then after the assessor is out in the field, talks to the homeowner, does the walk around outside, goes through the whole house, does their diagnostics, makes notes, takes pictures, all that kind of stuff. Then they need to get all that information into our WeatherWorks system. which is, it takes all the information and calculates the measures that should be taken. So when the energy auditor gets back to the office, they have to make sure that they input data into the proper fields, because a lot of people don't know how to do that. WeatherWorks, our old version, which is being phased out, is very hard, difficult to use. A lot of people have a lot of problems with our WeatherWorks system. They need to be clear and concise. They need to know client issues, anything unusual, and then there's pictures and diagrams that need to go into the file. They need to provide building ID and clear directions and use terminology, since they'll be communicating with the contractors. They have to make sure that they're not using jargon or shorthand or whatever that somebody else is not going to understand. They have to make sure that they communicate correctly, so the proper measures are taken at the home, because otherwise they get a call back. Somebody gets a call back. The homeowner has a problem, calls the agency talks to people, and the contractor may have to go back out and fix it.
Hey,
Lori,
Laura.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Allison.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, Tammy. I was curious for this, this seems somewhat like a checklist. Is this the same across all energy auditors, or does it vary, since those are private, companies or organizations, or even single person operations? Does the list of things that must be done, is it homogeneous?
It is for our energy auditors for the state of Illinois.
Okay.
We hire people in at these agencies to be energy auditors, and then every one of them should be doing the same process.
Okay.
So they should be following what we teach them, and using that document, using the assessor document. They should be looking at this and using that as a guide
Okay.
for what they need to do, and making notes and everything. And we find that one problem is that we get somebody, they learn about all this stuff, and they get out in the field, they don't have anybody to coach them or mentor them. They have questions, and I don't know how often they're reaching out. I mean, there are plenty of resources, and I'll get to that in a minute, but for some reason, people have trouble, I think. I'm not sure they have problems using the assessor document, other than it's so long. But when they get to WeatherWorks, which is this, they seem to have a lot of problems in how to use it, how to record the information, and how to make things accurate. And so, yes, to answer your question, yes, they should all be following the same protocol and doing the same things. But once they get to something like this, once they get to the weatherization, once they get to WeatherWorks, they can have a terrible time working in it. I think some of them are even scared to open it, because we found instances where people hadn't even opened it. And that's pretty bad, because this is the system that spits out the work orders for our contractors to do the work in the field. And if they haven't opened this, then they may have done a bunch of assessments, but they got to get the information in this system in order to get the work done for the clients.
Thank you. Yeah, that really helped answer my question.
Okay, great. Okay.
So Lori, I had a comment and a question. My comment is just that as you've been going through this,
Yeah.
I've been having a mild feeling of horror, not about what you are doing, but just because I know how hard it is for us to train, like for me to train undergrads to do anything. And then like, I think they understand it. They think they understand it. And I come back, and for students with no research experience, for example, or who have no experience in what I do, just the amount of misunderstanding tends to be high. And so I was looking at what you do, and realizing it's replicated and then it goes and affects people's houses, and just how easy it is for miscommunication to occur. And so I'm really respectful of what you have to do. Especially that transition between the auditor and the work order. Like the auditor's not going back out with them and talking to the contractor about what they're doing, right? It all has to be in the work order, right?
Yes, generally, that's the case. It's handing off the work order. I don't think there's a whole lot of communication between them. I've never, I had planned years ago to go into the field with somebody, and she never had time to do that. Neither one of us had time to do that. I wanted to see the process firsthand. But I think that some of these agencies are so short-staffed with there's like maybe one or two people, and they're doing it all. So I
Yeah.
would think that communication directly with the contractor is probably limited. And oh, I was gonna say something else and I forgot.
So then the question that I had is,
No,
is this is not the same from state to state, right? Like you might have control of it within Illinois and you specify things, but that is not repeated in every state?
I'm sorry, what's not repeated?
This process that you have of communicating, like identifying what needs to be done, putting it in a form and handing it off to a contractor, the training of the people that are involved in that, that is not the same in states other than Illinois, right? Like we could not expect this to be the same across the country.
I don't know how much of this, I'm sorry, I really don't know what other states do. I know ours is more comprehensive than most states. Paul, what, are you gonna chime in here?
Yeah, so qualitatively, this process is replicated throughout. And when I say qualitatively, I mean, there has to be some training, somebody has to go out, do an assessment, work order needs to be generated, handed off to somebody who's gonna install the measures, and then somebody has to do a quality control inspection. The extent of the training varies greatly. As Lori says, Illinois is one of the most comprehensive. Many states, instead of the 10 weeks that Lori was mentioning, try to do a week of training, which I find honestly horrifying. I do not want that person coming into my house, and so I do not want to send them to somebody else's house. But there's often mentoring that happens, hopefully by somebody who's also doing the job properly. The installers, sometimes they're contractors, sometimes they're in-house crews. Illinois is the only state that uses the WeatherWorks system. There are about 4 or so systems that are not WeatherWorks that are blanket approved by DOE. Every system has to be approved by DOE. There are 3 or 4 that are blanket approved by DOE. Some states use a priority list instead of a modeling software package. So it's just, kind of checking off boxes. And then there are some states like Illinois that have their own special packages that need to be approved. So the details of the implementation are very, very different state to state, but everybody does have to get some level, at least some training. There does have to be an audit, work order, hand it off to installers, and quality control inspection.
And we're working toward getting our trainers into the field more as mentors, or helping those, especially the new guys that just come through, the guys and gals that just have come through our program. And weatherization is pretty new, either totally new or fairly new to them. And having our guys go out with them, shadow them for a day or so, and give them feedback on what they're doing, and coaching them. I want a coaching, situation, and having my guys have that reputation with the network so that they could say, oh, Bashan came out last week and he really helped me. And I know I can call him if I have questions or problems. I mean, they have state techs, but the state techs there's like 10 of them for the whole state. And they're always super busy about going out and being at agencies. And they also try to help. But my guys are more, doing every measure. They've, been assessors and that kind of thing. And they're the best, I think, the best resource. It's just a matter of having enough staff and enough time to get people out there so that we can build that closer relationship with the agencies and be the real support that Mick has been looking for from us. But we've had growing pains and always something going on. So it's going to be a little while yet, but I'm starting to get people out there, especially after the TCP, after they've gone through that. And we now have a checklist or a program we want our students to complete in between classes, because our classes are every other week. So now we have a document that says, okay, you learned this in the class. Now during this week, we want you to do this, practice what we taught you, and kind of a checklist for the students so that they're, by the end of the TCP, they've done an assessment in the field and showing that they could do this stuff. Now that's not like that's going to take place, the place of going in the field and coaching them, but it will help them retain, because some people come in, they take our classes, they go back to the office, and the director or the coordinator wants them to work on paperwork on some other program. So they're not getting the practice that they need. So we're trying to find ways to address this and help people feel like they can take this on and do it correctly.
Okay, thanks. I'll stop asking questions so you can try to finish on time.
So I just got the WeatherWorks screen up here. Again, that's going to be replaced soon. We've got a new one coming, and it's going to be much friendlier to use for people. And so we can hardly wait. We've got a meeting for that in like a week and a half or something like that. And we'll learn more about that and what we can do to help teach people to use that new system. So that'll be great. Look, I'm looking forward to that. And I don't even use this. So I just hear about all the nightmares it is to use it. So this just has 4 tabs on it. This particular screen: retrofit, air sealing, incidental, health and safety. So it's tracking the expenses for this particular job. It's breaking them out into categories. Well, I guess the person who inputs it has to put them in the right place for them to be totaled up on these tabs. So again, you can see it's kind of complicated. There's a lot to it, but thank God it's going to be replaced. Okay, and then solutions for field problems that our assessors find. They can look at diagnostic tests to help them. They can go into the field standards manual. That should have a lot of information in it. Job aids, the WeatherWorks system, state techs, agency personnel, if they've got somebody who is experienced, they can go to. Not everybody has that. Really small agencies don't usually have somebody to help them. So they're brand new coming in. They don't know where to start. TCB class materials, they could refer back to the notes they took. The training center, they can call my guys for questions. They can email them. My guys might even, if they have time, go out there to provide training and support. And then there's a policies and procedures manual, a really big manual that Mick works on that's got all kinds of information in it. So these guys, by the time they get through, they should be considered professionals. They have to learn a lot. They have to reference a lot of information. They have to understand the science behind what they do. And so it's complicated, and it's a shame when we lose some of these people because of factors that are not under our control. We just do the best we can to be a good training center and help staff. And otherwise, it's unfortunately out of our control, but we do what we can.
Thanks. Yay.
Oh my gosh, was that painful?
No, it just took that we didn't expect it would take 2 sessions to get through because you have so much to share. That's all. I'm glad that we finally did it.
It's not like we could do an elevator speech on it, is it?
Oh, maybe you could.
Oh, I
Next
don't know.
challenge. But yeah, so thank you for presenting it. And I think one of the big things that I see is just the challenge of replication and quality in the whole field, right? And I think it's good for this group to consider, because I think we're very we have the ideal home in mind and the ideal installation and the ideal set of knowledge, and it doesn't take very long to get outside of that ideal.
That's correct. There's only so many things you can control. So as many safeguards as you might want to build into it, there's always the human factor, which is the unknown, really. I mean, you don't know how well they paid attention as a student, or how seriously they're taking the information, or whether they really understand it. There's all kinds of factors to consider. So, and you can't foolproof it. I mean, you can build in for this and that and the other thing, but and then you're going to find there's still something that you didn't even think about. So not to be a Debbie Downer or anything here. I'm just saying that realistically, right, we're dealing in what's ideal, but what happens is usually different.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's part of what we want to capture in this project. But beginning with what happens in the home, but there's clearly a lot that happens delivering to the home as well. Does anyone have more questions?
I had a quick one. Lori, is there kind of like, what's the average amount of time it might take someone to do one of these? Is it that it takes like half a day? Or do they come a couple of days? I was just kind of curious about that time commitment on the part of the person doing the audit, as well as the family or the homeowner.
I think I've heard from Mick, the program manager, the weatherization program manager, that they should be able to do a house in half a day. But I think that might also depend on how big the house is, the number of problems that are encountered, and things like that. And I mean, Mick was an energy auditor, and he's worked his way up to state manager. So he's probably got a little bit more on the ball than most of our assessors do. So the fact that he says they get through in half a day might be a little bit idealistic, but he's pushing for quality in doing the assessment, quality work by our contractors, but he also needs them to be busy. I mean, he doesn't want them to just do, I guess there's some agencies that are doing like 2 a week. And he's like, no, that you can do better than that. So I think he's hoping for, and maybe in most cases it is true, half a day for one assessment.
Thanks.
Sure.
Okay, well, thanks everyone. And thanks, Lori, for taking us through all that. Have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much,
Lori.
Lori.
Everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
I,